You see a headline about a conflict somewhere in the world. You scroll past it. War feels like something baked into the news cycle, always present, always somewhere. But the real answer is far stranger than inevitability. For most of human history, organized group violence like this didn't exist at all. So when did it start? And why? In 2012, a team led by archaeologist Marta Mirazón Lahr excavated a site called Nataruk, near a lake in Kenya. What they found stopped them cold. The skeletal remains of at least 27 people, dated to around 10,000 years ago, showing clear signs of violent death. Fractured skulls, embedded arrow points, bound hands on at least one victim. This wasn't a single fight between two people. It looked like the aftermath of an organized attack on a group. Why does one site matter so much? Because Nataruk is one of the earliest clear pieces of evidence for something that looks like coordinated, lethal violence between groups, rather than an isolated murder or accident. Before this kind of evidence, most signs of ancient human death point to individual conflict, hunting accidents, or single acts of violence. Nataruk looks like something else entirely. Here's where it gets stranger. Thousands of years later, a different site tells a similar story. Jebel Sahaba, along the Nile in Sudan, contains dozens of skeletons dating back roughly 13,000 years, many showing embedded stone projectile points and healed wounds from earlier violence. For decades, researchers treated it as one dramatic event. But a re-examination led by archaeologist Isabelle Crevecoeur found something different. The injuries weren't all from a single battle. They appeared to represent repeated episodes of violence over time, small recurring raids rather than one climactic war. That distinction matters enormously. It suggests something researchers hadn't fully appreciated. Early organized violence may not have started as grand, decisive battles. It may have looked more like a pattern, small, repeated clashes between neighboring groups stretching across generations. So why did it start at all? Economist Samuel Bowles has studied the conditions under which early human violence became more likely. His research points to something surprisingly practical: scarcity. When resources like fertile land, water, or hunting grounds became limited, especially as populations grew and climates shifted, the incentive for one group to take by force what another group had increased sharply. Violence wasn't constant throughout human history. It appeared to cluster around moments of ecological pressure, when peaceful coexistence stopped being the easier option. Consider what both sites, Nataruk and Jebel Sahaba, sit near. Water, fertile ground near a lake. A river valley capable of supporting more people than the surrounding desert. These weren't random locations. They were valuable ones, exactly the kind of place worth defending and worth attacking. This reframes the entire question. War wasn't some inevitable feature baked into human nature from the beginning. For the vast majority of human history, small mobile groups had little reason to fight over territory they could simply leave. Organized violence seems to emerge alongside a very specific set of conditions: settled or semi-settled life, defined territory, real scarcity, and enough population density that walking away stopped being a realistic option. That's a very different story than the one you might expect. Not a species born for war, but a species that, under the right pressures, in the right places, discovered it as one possible answer to a very old problem: not enough for everyone. Modern conflict is obviously far more complex than a fight over a lakeshore 10,000 years ago. But the underlying pressure, competition over what's scarce, hasn't disappeared. It's just wearing different clothes now: oil instead of water, borders instead of hunting grounds, ideology layered on top of older calculations about resources and survival. So the next time you scroll past a headline about conflict somewhere in the world, you're not just looking at politics. You're looking at one of the oldest patterns your species ever learned, first written in the bones at a lakeshore in Kenya and a river valley in Sudan, long before anyone called it by its name.